Quazi here. I discovered a hidden law of reality in 2017, which I later came to understand as the law of assumption. 2 years later, I experienced one of the hardest and darkest moments of my life in 2019. But at the same time, 2019 was also one of the greatest years of my life. See, I read this book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. In it, he has an exercise where you craft a mantra of what you want in your life. And mine was, I'm so happy and grateful now that I have $100,000 in my bank account. Now, mind you, at the time, I was a junior in college, destined to go into a soul-sucking full-time engineering job, the very thought of which made me very depressed. I read it for a year, nothing happened. 2 years later, I continued to read it, and by November of 2019, I made my first $100,000. In today's video, I want to share with you how the law of assumption completely changed my life, and I want to provide you with the tools to make your first 100K or more. Because ever since I followed this and continued to follow it, I have made over $6 million in lifetime earnings. This is 8 years of learning consolidated into a 3-step formula I like to call the trifecta of reality creation, centered around this deeper law of reality known as the law of assumption. By living as though the thing that you want already exists in your life, you will manifest it into existence. So let's jump right in. So before getting into the trifecta of reality creation, we must understand the premise of the law of assumption. So the law of assumption is a concept coined by famous philosopher, New Age thought, manifestation guru Neville Goddard in the early 20th century. Neville Goddard kind of really pioneered the law of attraction, but his main concept was the law of assumption, which basically says that if we assume that whatever we want has already become true, it will become true. If we energetically align to that end goal and live as though it has come true right now, it will come true. I was unconsciously living by this law when I first found out about this book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And in this book, Napoleon Hill gave us a mantra, which I mentioned to you earlier, and that mantra is an auto-suggestion mantra, which is supposed to program your subconscious mind and live out those patterns and have you almost assume that into existence right now. I would like to share with you, if you don't mind, what my mantra was that I crafted in 2017, and I was reading it for the next 2 years, and there's different adaptations of it that I made after I've achieved those goals. But it's interesting, I actually found out what my mantra was, and this is how it goes. My old mantra was, by January 1st, 2019, I will have in my possession $100,000, which will come to me in various amounts from time to time during the interim. In return, I will give the most efficient service of which I am capable, rendering the fullest possible quantity and the best possible quality of service in the capacity of making YouTube videos. I believe that I will have this money in my possession. My faith is so strong that I can now see this money before my eyes. I can touch it with my hands. It is awaiting transfer to me at the time and in the proportion that I deliver the service I intend to render in return for it. I'm awaiting a plan by which to accumulate this money. I will follow that plan exactly when it is received. Throughout this mantra, what you will notice is that there are 3 main components which constitutes of the 3 main parts of this reality creation formula that is really governed by the law of assumption. So with that, let's get started with the first part of this, which is absolutely crucial that you're going to see this. It's going to be a recurring theme, which is propelling reality. And what that means is we simply focus, we start with the end in mind. That is the premise of the law of assumption. So we focus on the end goal and live as though it has already become true. So what does that mean? For me, I had that goal of making $100,000. That was my end at the time. Okay, I wanted to have and accumulate $100,000. I visualized that $100,000 and what that life would look like. So I always visualized one particular scene and I placed myself in the scene. So Quazi waking up next to the partner of his dreams. Back then I was single and I had no money. I was broke. I was a college student. I was waking up in this mansion in LA next to the woman of my dreams, and I was making the money that I wanted to make, and everything that I wanted came true. And I would walk down those stairs, go outside, and there's my Ferrari. I forgot the keys to my Ferrari. My beautiful blonde partner comes out and throws me the keys to the Ferraris, and I ride out of the gates of my mansion into town. And this LA mansion is up on some hill. And that's what I always had visualized for years. Every time I would read this statement and I would think about the $100,000. If I was someone who was having $100,000, I would also be making maybe around $20,000 a month. And that's what I visualized for 2-3 years until I actually made my first $100,000 by November of 2019. After that point, which I started to make $100,000 a month. January of 2020, I made my first $100,000 month, and I started to do six-figure months right after that. It was absolutely insane how true this became and how far beyond my imagination it went. And that is my wish for you. When you use this and you actually have faith, as Napoleon Hill mentions, my faith is so strong. When you have faith, when you open yourself up to the gifts of the world, you're going to see that the thing that you want, what actually happens is way beyond that. Like, it's going to be way beyond what you could even imagine. Focus on the end goal right now. If you do not know what the means are to move towards it, just focus on what you want. For me, this was crucial because I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know how I would get there. I had a vague idea of a YouTube channel, and we're going to talk about this in part 3, of how to find out that process that will actually lead you there, which is going to be very crucial. But for me at that time, I was a broke college student. My buddy suggested that I read Think and Grow Rich, and in it had a formula, and he said that formula changed his life. And so I started to write that formula down, that mantra down, and I just, I believed him. I just read it to myself every single night before bed and every morning before I went to class. Lo and behold, it became true in 2 years. So when we think about the goals that we have, for me at the time, when I thought of having $100,000, I was very doubtful. I was like, how is that even going to happen? How the heck am I going to have $100,000 in my bank account? I'm about to go into an engineering job, and that would probably take me years and years and years if I make a six-figure salary and I just literally saved up every single penny. After paying my bills, I'd be making $50K the first year, $50K the next year. I don't think I'd be able to save every single penny of that. So it would take me maybe at least 5 years to have that. But for me, it happened within 2 short years. So I couldn't conceive of how it would happen, and that's why I trusted, and I simply just allowed myself to let go of the how and just focus on the end goal until the plan, according to the mantra. I'm awaiting a plan by which to accumulate this money. And in the meantime, I'm simply becoming one with my assumption. That's what needs to happen. When you don't have a plan, do not worry. Simply focus on the goal and the thing that you want. Immerse yourself in it, both intellectually and emotionally. Really feel the feelings associated with it, and just keep repeating that every single day. You will see that the plans that you need to get you there, you'll find them. It's going to come to you. You just need to be patient, have a little faith. The other crucial part to this, to propelling reality, is focus on how the goal gets achieved by its own accord. Without your interruption, without your interference. How is this goal just simply happening? Oh, somehow events unfold and somehow it happens. I do not know how, nor do I care how. I simply want it, I have chosen it, it will happen. So you're kind of like a child. You're like a kid in a playground, you're allowing yourself to dream. You don't have all of these mental conditions attached to it, like, oh, this needs to happen, that needs to happen. And that is a trap that we all fall into. We fall into the trap of, oh, in order for me to make $100,000, this needs to happen, that needs to happen. While that's great, you're a very analytical person, you have plans. Still be open to receiving it by however God has planned for you to receive it. You need to balance both. Move forward with your own plan that you think is the right thing to do, but at the same time be open to receiving instructions that could be even better for you. For how do you know that the universe doesn't have something better planned for you? So that's the 2 crucial parts to propelling reality. I would say the number 1 thing you have to do is focus on the end goal. And the number 2 thing that you must do is almost be like a child and focus on how it gets accomplished by itself and repeatedly remind yourself of it formulaically like this every single day, before bed and first thing in the morning. If you'd like, you can copy my formula for yourself and just put in your own variables in there. Which leads me to the second part of this, which is even equally crucial that most people never really understand, which took me like a couple years to understand before it worked for me, which is learning how to propel self. So let's get into that right now. The second most crucial part to this that people never really see. And this is not even explicitly mentioned in the book itself. That's why it took me a really long time to figure out. Learning how to propel the self. What I mean by propelling the self is this is actually a very core driver of the law of assumption, because one of the deepest laws of reality is the law of identity or the law of being. Because when we are that correct version of ourselves, then the doing will naturally follow. And when the doing follows, the having will naturally happen. So when I am one with who I would be once I am accomplishing that $100,000, or I'm accomplishing and achieving the 20K a month, then the actions that I need to take to get to that 20K a month will naturally follow. When the actions follow and the circumstances all happen kind of like a bridge of incidents, then the having of that 20K a month will be a natural consequence. Do you see how this is working? So wherever you are in your life right now, I want you to take a moment to evaluate what you're experiencing. What are you stuck at? What revenue level are you stuck at? What income are you stuck at? What terrible consequence and scenario are you stuck at? Chances are, this is going to be difficult to hear, you are attracting that unconsciously because of who you identify with. You identify as the kind of person who is only good enough to keep attracting this scenario. And because we've habitually trained ourselves to think and feel the same way, which is shaping who we are being, thus we attract these same scenarios. So what needs to happen, why it's so difficult for people to break free of this pattern, is because we become addicted to feeling this way and thinking this way, because our ego feels that it has kept us safe. If I just think and feel this way and I keep thinking like a victim and how life has subjected me to all of this torture, somehow I'm getting a secret payoff. You know how it's like to think toxic or to gossip. Oh, it's so juicy, you know, that's why they call it juicy gossip. You get some form of a thrill. But to be in higher vibration states, it's not as much of a toxic drip, you know, you're not addicted to it. The feelings of joy, peace, and love are more neutral, higher, uplifting, lighter. It's not heavy, you're not addicted to it, like fear, like shame, like anger, like guilt, like you're hiding something. It's just, that's the thrill of it, right? There's a thrill to these lower vibration emotions. So that's why we tend to get addicted to them, because our ego starts to believe that when I hold on to this, it has kept me alive up until this point. Therefore, it will keep me alive for the next XYZ years. But if it does keep you alive, what's the point if you're going to live a miserable existence? So whatever you're experiencing right now, you are only experiencing that as a neutral set point because of who you identify as. I'm going to say that one more time. Whatever it is that is your neutral state of reality right now, you are only experiencing that because you identify as the kind of person who is only worthy of that. That is going to be a punch in the face for a lot of people, but I had to say it because you really need to investigate how you're thinking and what you feel on a predominant basis, which is dictating who you are. To change that behavior, we need to become very aware first of what we want. And for me, this was that 20K a month, or becoming the kind of person who has and is comfortable with holding $100,000. And by the way, I have so many clients who make $100,000, they have it in their bank account, but they immediately spend it because they're so uncomfortable holding onto it. Do you know why? They don't see themselves as the kind of person who's worthy of holding onto $100,000. Your financial set point is really determined by how much money you feel comfortable holding, right? If you feel comfortable holding a certain amount of money, that is your financial identity. If you only feel whatever assets you own in total, that is your financial identity. Once you change it at the being level, then the actions you take to accumulate finances increases. And then the having as a result ensues. To change this, we have to first get clear on what we want, which is what we did in this earlier part. You focus on that end goal every single day, but now you want to focus on who you must become to effortlessly attract that into your life. When I learned this, I asked myself, hey, if I were making 20K a month, and if I were the kind of person who had $100,000, what kind of a person would I be? Who would I need to embody to effortlessly be making 20K a month? When I visualize that scene where I'm waking up in the mansion in LA next to the woman of my dreams, driving the Ferrari, who am I being in that scene? How can I embody that state of being right now? How can I live from that assumption in this very moment? I promise you, if you simply do this, what's going to happen is if you start to live as though you were that self, within a few short months, you're going to change so much. People in your life will not recognize you. So when I look at my old friends and I go back to these old circumstances, people don't recognize me. Deep down, I've remained the same person, but my behaviors and how I think, how I feel has completely changed. I may look the same, but they will say there is something different about you. Energetically, there's something different about you. And of course there is, because I've become a completely different person. I'm still that guy who shoots the shit and has fun with them, but how I think and feel about different things in my life, how I view money, how I view relationships, how I view my health. All of those have changed. And so they're going to notice it in your behavior once you change and once your view, your perception of yourself and your world completely changes. I remember when I was starting up this business, I was on my path to making YouTube videos and getting to 20K a month before I made 20K a month. Senior year, my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, we took a vacation. We went to Sedona. I remember at the time, my financial identity, I was so very, very stingy with money because I didn't have a lot of it. I was afraid to spend freely. Making cheap decisions about hotels, flights, and rental cars and everything, just like keep it cheap, cheap, cheap so I don't spend too much. But then I realized, this doesn't feel congruent with that 20K a month version of myself. If I were the 20K a month version of myself, how would I conduct myself in this vacation? What kind of decisions would I make in this vacation? Where would I stay? What would I be doing? And mind you, that's not me being stupid and spending every last penny that I had on this vacation. No, but it's stretching my limits. So it's somewhere in the middle, right? So if I were 20K a month version of myself, I would be spending a lot more lavishly than I am now. If I'm the stingy version of myself, I would be spending a lot cheaper. So what's that middle ground where I can stretch myself, get out of my comfort zone? This hotel is this much. What about a slightly higher tier? Okay, how about we go a slightly higher tier because I'm embodying that 20K a month version of myself. And as soon as I do that, I recognize, I mentally confirm this to myself that, hey, wait a second, by the very act of making this decision, I am becoming this 20K a month version of myself. So I would continually reinforce that by every single decision I made. So I want you to think with whatever income you want, whatever it is that you want in your life, the relationship, the health, the income, who would you be if you already had that right now? How would you conduct yourself? How would your decisions that you're making in your day-to-day life change? How would you dress differently? How would you talk to people differently? What would you be eating differently? What would change about your mannerisms? Really think about that. Take some time to think about this 20K a month version of yourself, this identity of a 20K a month or whatever K a month or whatever it is that you want for yourself, version of yourself. And this is going to be very, very crucial. The keys to this that I want you to take away is number one, act as if you already became that version of myself. I remember coming back from that vacation, I started to plan my future vacations and actually go online and look at the places I would book. And we planned our next vacation in Los Angeles before, and this was way before. I was making maybe like 1 to 3K a month then with the business. I didn't have nearly enough money that I did by that next vacation, which I'm getting to. So I was planning my LA vacation and all the things we would do once I already had 20K a month. I'd already fully assumed that I would be making 20K a month. Completely delusional, and planned that out immediately. The month that we were supposed to take that trip, right before that month, August of 2019, I had my first 18K month. It was either 18 or 21K. Very nearly hit that 20K month, and we took that vacation. We went to LA. The thing that I wanted manifested, all because I was acting as if. This truly works if you allow yourself to experience those things that you want. Number one, act as if. Think about the thing that you want and almost pretend that you already have it. If you want a sports car, go on sports car websites and think about the one that you'd like to buy. Go take test drives of the car that you want. Imagine as though you're picking out the color that you're gonna buy and you go to the sales page and you're like, yeah, I'm just getting my card in or getting my bank information, I'm gonna order it, etc. Pretend as much as you can. Go to expensive stores and try on things, Get yourself used to that feeling of what it's like to be in that energy of abundance, be in that energy of money, wealth, the thing that you want, that money, the income that you want. Because I did this for myself and I still do this every day. The process of doing a vision board is kind of like that, isn't it? Because you're picking out the things that you want and you're immersing yourself in that energy. You're bringing that assumption into life right now. The second part to this that makes it work is your daily life. Act from that place. If I were that 20K a month version, how would my decisions be impacted? If I were this 20K a month version, what would I order at the restaurant? What kind of help would I hire for my home? The actions that you take, they must be influenced by who you're intending to be. Which brings me to my next part, learning how to propel the current frame and how to align your actions to lead you directly to that end goal, that end assumption that we talked about. So now that we know the first two parts, learning how to propel reality, learning how to propel the self, this is all great. Propelling the reality is learning to focus on that goal, the what. Propelling yourself is learning to focus on who. But when we focus on what and who, for most people, they get stuck because they can't see a clear path to getting to where they want to get to. And once you can see a clear path, it becomes very, very easy to put one foot in front of the other. As a great mentor of mine once taught me, confidence is a byproduct of clarity. Once you're clear about what you want, you don't need confidence. You simply put one foot in front of the other and move towards the thing that you want. All you need is clarity. So in any area of your life, if you're feeling stuck, just ask yourself, what am I unclear about? What is unclear to me right now? Just getting clear on what is unclear, you're going to attract the circumstances that will bring the roadmap to you, which brings me to propelling the current frame. I'd like to begin this with a quote from Napoleon Hill. A weak plan executed with a definiteness of purpose will triumph over a strong plan executed with an indefiniteness of purpose. So the clear key here is, whatever it is that you're doing, you need a definiteness of purpose. You need to be very, very definite in your purpose. It doesn't matter if you have a weak plan. It doesn't matter if you have a strong plan. Whatever plan you have in place, if you have a definiteness of purpose, a very, very strong intention, a resoluteness in your decision to have, you're childlike, you give yourself permission to have, I don't care how it happens, I'm just focused on having it. I will have it. I do not care how, do not care when, it is going to happen somehow. When you focus on that, that is definiteness of purpose. Your resoluteness in your decision to have and to do whatever it takes to have it. Have you ever heard of people talking about take massive action, go and grind? Those people are successful and they actually make a lot of money. It's not because they know some secret. Their secret is that hard work is an expression of their internal commitment. When you have that internal commitment, that decision, that resoluteness in your decision, you actually don't necessarily need hard work. The hard work will become easy work. You're going to fall in love with doing the work because you're playing all the time. You're very, very clear on what you want. You're very, very passionate about what you're doing. And so the work naturally happens. The doing naturally happens because you're in that right state of being. Do you see how all of these three are being connected together? So towards the end of my mantra, where it says, I am awaiting a plan by which to accumulate this money, I will follow that plan when it is received. But before that, I also mentioned what I thought to be my plan at that time, which was the best possible quality of service in the capacity of making YouTube videos. At that time, I didn't know how I was going to make money. For all I knew, I was going to sell merch on this YouTube channel. This same YouTube channel, which has around 650,000 subscribers now. I thought I was going to sell merch. But then as I focused on this end goal, and I just persisted in the plan that I knew at that time. Just put one foot in front of the other and making YouTube videos. I'm gonna pull this screenshot up here because it actually makes me emotional still. I believe in June of 2018, someone actually emailed me, reaching out to me for coaching. And she said, I'm willing to pay you $300 for a few email coaching sessions. And God bless your soul if you're still watching this video. I love you so much. You've changed my life. You gave me the idea of starting coaching, and I'm so grateful for that, because coaching for me is the thing that sets fire to my soul, because I love helping other people and being able to facilitate a transformation in them and see them grow as a result of it. But when she reached out to me for coaching, that was my light bulb moment. That was the plan that I was waiting for. When I got that plan and I realized, hey, I could offer up coaching for people who are looking for help with this. As soon as I started doing that, everything just skyrocketed. And that's the path that led me to making 20K a month, 100K a month, 200K a month, all because of that. So that was the plan for me, but that plan came because I persisted in the first two. And also I followed what I thought to be right at the time, which was making YouTube videos. So what you want to do, the two things you want to remember from this is, number one, you must move directionally towards your goal. You must be directionally correct towards your goal. It doesn't matter what exactly you're doing, just move in the right direction. So I'll give you an example. If we have the four different directions, north, south, east, west, let's say your goals are north, right? But right now you're moving south. That means you're not directionally moving towards your goal. It's okay if you're moving completely east and completely west. That's completely fine. As long as you're not moving south, moving away from the goal, you're good. All you need to do is move in three other directions, which leads me to the next part, gain momentum. If you're an object at rest tends to stay at rest. An object in motion tends to stay in motion. So gain momentum by taking at least one step in that direction towards your goal. There's a great story in Think and Grow Rich that Napoleon Hill talks about in chapter 2. He talks about this character called Edwin Barnes who had this great dream to work with Thomas Edison. And he had this fiery desire to work with Thomas Edison. He would do anything. So he showed up and took the lowest possible menial job. It says, he was content to start in the most menial work as long as it provided an opportunity opportunity to take even one step towards his cherished goal. He didn't care. And by the end of this journey, I think in a couple of years, he actually became partners with Thomas Edison, right? The great Edison. That's what his dream was. That's the part I want to highlight. Even one step. All you need to do is take one step towards this. The two takeaways I want you to get from this. You must ask yourself right now, that end goal that you've decided to have, that income increase, the health, the relationship, what is one thing I can do right now to move one step towards the goal? Go and do it, and do that one thing every day. You might think of a different one thing every single day, or it could be the same one thing. For me, it was making the YouTube videos. I had to make the YouTube videos because for me, that was my idea to move one step closer towards my personal freedom. The second part to this, equally important, we need to be directionally correct. What's one thing I can sacrifice, that I must cut out, that is moving me away from my goal? Really think about that. So for me at the time, I was working a job. I had the idea of starting on my YouTube channel. For me, when I evaluated these choices, I noticed that working this job is not actually moving me any steps closer to my goal. I couldn't see any way this job was moving me one step closer to my goal. So I decided to take the leap of faith and quit, even though I didn't have an income from the YouTube channel. I barely made 1 to 3K a month, if that, right? I had no consistent income. And I went all in on my business because I realized that this was moving me away from my goals. I also had to make other sacrifices, like hanging out with friends who are not helpful, who are also in that 9-to-5 grind, who would never really understand what I'm doing. Ask yourself, what's one thing I can do right now to move me towards my goals? What's one thing I can sacrifice that's moving me away from my goals? And do those two things right now. Literally write it down, the things that you need to do. So what I want you to do right now is click right here. I would like for you to access our exclusive newsletter where I can share stuff that I can't quite share on the YouTube channel because of the platform's limitations. So you can click right here to access that, and upon clicking on it, upon accessing it, the first thing you're going to get is our exclusive identity shifting bootcamp, which is going to summarize this main part, propelling the self, because that's where people have a lot of trouble. It's going to be completely free for you to access. It's going to be sent right to your email as soon as you join our newsletter. And every single week we send around 3 to 4 different bonuses, my personal life, my thoughts and things that I'm thinking of right now, to that email list. So if you want access to that, click right here and I will see you in our newsletter. Thanks.